Welcome to Create More Intimacy, a podcast for men. I'm Elisa Stoddard, and I help successful men stop chasing sex and start building real connection so they finally feel close, connected, and wanted again. He has tried everything. He's given her space. He's backed off when she seemed tired. He's planned ahead, cleaned the kitchen, put the kids to bed without being asked. He has tried being more direct. He has tried being less direct. He has come home in a good mood, kept the evening light, made her laugh. And at the end of it, when he reaches for her, she either isn't there emotionally or she says she's not in the mood. He doesn't understand it. Not because he isn't trying. He is trying constantly. He just can't figure out what the formula is, what the sequence of things is that produces the outcome he wants, what he has to do or say or be in order for her to want him. And underneath all that confusion is something worse than frustration. It's the quiet, persistent belief that there must be something wrong with her or him or the marriage, because if desire were real, if she were actually attracted to him, it wouldn't be this hard. It wouldn't require so much management. It would just happen. That belief is the thing I want to address in this episode, because it's not just wrong, it's the reason he keeps failing. Welcome to episode 58, Responsive Desire, Why the Way You've Been Initiating Keeps Failing. And before we go any further, if you haven't listened to episode 57 yet, I want you to go back and do that after this one. Last week's episode is about being willing and able to hear her truth, and it connects directly to what we're covering today. These two episodes belong together. Most men carry a very specific picture of how desire is supposed to work. You feel it first, it shows up on its own, without prompting, without context. You're attracted to someone, and your body responds to that attraction. That response is what signals that you want them. The desire comes before anything else happens. This is called spontaneous desire, and for a large percentage of men, it's the primary way desire operates. You don't need the conditions to be just right. You don't need to be in the middle of a warm, connected evening. You just want her, and the wanting is already there when you walk in the door. Because this is how desire has worked for him for most of his life, it becomes his baseline assumption for how desire works in general for everyone in all circumstances. So when he initiates and she isn't already there, he reads that as absence of desire, as disinterest, as rejection. He interprets her not yet as a no, and he pulls back, or pushes through, or starts managing and calculating because the desire he was expecting simply wasn't there waiting for him. What he does not know, because no one ever explained it to him, is that there is a second way desire operates. It's a completely different mechanism. One that is just as real, just as psychologically grounded, and far more common among women than the model he has been using to navigate his marriage. That second type is called responsive desire. And once he understands it, everything he thought he knew about why she's not responding to him has to be reconsidered. Responsive desire doesn't arrive first. It arrives second. It doesn't show up before anything happens. It shows up in response to something happening. The arousal doesn't precede the experience. It follows it. For someone with responsive desire, the sequence isn't want, then engage. It's engage, and then wanting emerges. This is not a workaround. It is not a compromise. It is not a sign that something is missing or broken. It is a legitimate, well-documented way that desire functions in human beings, and it is the predominant pattern for a significant number of women, particularly women in long-term relationships. What that means in practice is this: she is not going to feel desire and then reach for him. She is going to need something to happen first, something in the environment or between them that allows desire to surface. The desire isn't absent. It's not gone. It's not waiting somewhere that she can't access. It's just hidden, and it needs the right conditions to activate. Think about it this way. Spontaneous desire is like a car with a fully charged battery. You turn the key and it starts. Responsive desire is like a car that needs a push to get the engine going. Once it's running, it runs, but it does not start on its own. Neither car is broken, they just start differently. The reason this matters so much is that most men have been evaluating their wife's desire using the wrong diagnostic. They're measuring her interest at the moment before anything has happened and concluding from that reading that she doesn't want them. But for someone with responsive desire, the moment before anything has happened is exactly when desire is least visible. It hasn't had a reason to show up yet. He's been asking the wrong question at the wrong time and interpreting the answer as evidence of a problem that isn't actually there. Here is where this gets more specific and more honest. Responsive desire doesn't just need warmth in the moment. It needs a history of safety and warmth. And safety is not something she can just choose to feel because he's in a good mood tonight. It is built incrementally through repeated experiences over time, and it is eroded the very same way. Every interaction leaves a deposit or a withdrawal. When conversations feel safe, when she can say something honest without bracing for a shutdown or a defensive reaction, that's a deposit. When she says no to intimacy and he goes quiet, pulls away, or lets a chill settle over the rest of the evening, that's a withdrawal. And she remembers it. And it isn't because she's keeping score out of spite, but because her nervous system is doing exactly what nervous systems are designed to do. It is learning whether this environment is safe. When a man gets in a bad mood after she declines, the message her body receives is clear. Even if nothing is said out loud, there are consequences for saying no. And that message does not stay in the bedroom. It travels into every future moment when intimacy might have been possible. Her body starts to associate closeness with risk, with the threat of displeasure, with the weight of managing his emotional state on top of her own. This is how obligation sex develops. Not all at once, it's gradual, and she learns that saying yes is easier than managing the aftermath of saying no. She starts agreeing not because she wants to, but because the alternative costs her something. And obligation sex cuts deep in ways that don't show up immediately. It is intimacy that doesn't feel like intimacy. It is closeness that leaves her feeling more alone afterward, not less. And over time, her body begins to associate sex itself with that hollowness, with that sense of going through the motions to keep the peace. Women's bodies learn. That isn't a metaphor. The physical and emotional responses that allow desire to emerge are the same ones that get suppressed when the environment has taught her that vulnerability is not safe. You can't reason her out of that response. You cannot will her desire back into existence by trying or being more attentive on Thursday evening. The learning has to happen at the same level it was lost, through repeated, consistent, genuine experiences of safety over time. How he shows up every day matters, not just on the nights when he's hoping for connection. The conversation that turned into an argument on Tuesday, the moment she tried to tell him something hard and he got defensive, the way he went silent after she said she was too tired, all of that registers. All of it shapes conditions that either allow responsive desire to emerge or keep it buried. This is not about blame. It's about honesty. The emotional climate of the relationship is something he has significant influence over. And if that climate has been teaching her that vulnerability carries consequences, then desire has been responding to an accurate read of the environment. There is another pattern worth naming directly because it quietly poisons the well in a lot of marriages, and most men don't see it until someone puts language to it. He helps out more. He does the dishes, handles bedtime, takes things off her plate, and somewhere underneath all that effort, there is an expectation. It's not always conscious, not always stated, but it is present. A sense that he has done his part, that the ledger has shifted, and that something is now owed to him. Guys, it doesn't work that way. Let me be clear about something, gently, without softening it too much. He does not get credit for contributing to the household in which he lives. Doing an equitable share of the work at home is not a favor. It is not a gift. It is what it means to be an adult partner in a shared life. He is not helping her. He is participating in his own life. Now, here is what equitable contribution can do. When she is not carrying the entire mental and physical load on her own, she has more energy, potentially, more capacity, more room to breathe. And a woman who is not running on empty, who does not feel like the household manager and the emotional administrator and the primary parent and more all at once, is a woman who has something left over. That matters. That creates conditions. But those conditions are not a transaction. They do not convert directly into desire. She's not a vending machine where the right inputs produce the expected output. And the moment he approaches contribution as a bid for intimacy, she feels it. Women are extraordinarily good at sensing the difference between a man who is genuinely showing up and a man who is performing generosity in service of an outcome. When it feels transactional, desire shuts down, and it's not meant to punish you. It's an accurate response for what is actually happening. What he is owed for being a present contributing partner is a present contributing partner. That's the deal. The intimacy, the desire, the reaching for each other, those things grow when the emotional environment is right. They can't be purchased, and they can't be earned through a checklist. The distinction matters because men who are stuck in the transactional frame keep doing more of the same thing and wondering why nothing changes. They are solving for the wrong equation. The question is never, what did I do and what do I get? The question is, what kind of emotional environment am I creating? And is that an environment where her desire has room to emerge? Most men understand that communication matters in a relationship. What few men understand is that there are two channels running simultaneously, and both of them have to be working. There's verbal communication, what he says, how he says it, whether he is direct, whether he follows through, whether the words he uses match the reality she is living in. And there is emotional communication, what his presence conveys when he isn't saying anything, whether she feels seen in the silence, whether the way he moves through the house, through a conversation, through a disagreement, signals that she is safe with him. Both matter, and they have to be consistent with each other. A man can say all the right things and still communicate emotionally that she needs to manage him, protect herself around him, or perform a version of herself that keeps things smooth. Words that are not backed by emotional steadiness don't create connection. They create confusion. She hears one thing and feels another, and over time, she starts trusting what she feels. This connects directly to what last week's episode covered, the willingness and ability to hear her truth. If he cannot hear what she is actually telling him without shutting down or getting defensive, then the emotional channel is communicating danger even when the verbal channel is saying all the right things. She will stop talking honestly, not because she doesn't want to be close, but because honesty has taught her it isn't safe. For responsive desire to have room to emerge, both channels have to be saying the same thing. His words and his presence have to be congruent. She has to be able to tell him something real and experience him staying open. She has to be able to say no and not pay for it. She has to feel in her body, not just hear from his mouth, that she is with someone who can handle her full experience without making her responsible for his reaction. That is what emotional communication looks like when it is working. And that is the kind of environment where responsive desire stops being hidden and starts becoming available. Every time he reached for her and she wasn't there, something happened inside him. He registered that as a no, as evidence that she doesn't want him, as confirmation of the quiet fear that he isn't desired. Over time, those experiences stack up, and they change how he shows up. He stops initiating things that might get turned down. He becomes less emotionally present because emotional presence feels risky when you're bracing for rejection. He starts protecting himself in small ways that from her side look like distance, like disinterest, like he's already checked out, which then creates exactly the kind of emotional environment that suppresses responsive desire. He pulls back because he read absence of desire as rejection. She responded to his pulling back by becoming more guarded. His guardedness confirmed his fear. Her guardedness deepened his withdrawal. And the cycle is locked in. None of that was because she didn't want him. It was because her desire needed conditions that were not present. And when he read her, not yet, as a permanent no, he started dismantling the very conditions that would have allowed desire to surface. This is one of the most painful realizations men come to when they finally understand this dynamic. They weren't being rejected. They were responding to a process they didn't understand as though it were a verdict. And that response made the problem worse. The relief in this is real. The accountability is real too. Both things are true at the same time. If responsive desire needs context, then the question becomes, what creates the right context? And the answer is not a technique. It's not a sequence of behaviors to perform or a set of conditions to engineer and then check off. Men who approach this as a formula end up back in the same calculation they were already doing, just with different variables. What creates context for responsive desire is genuine emotional presence, connection that isn't aimed at a destination. The experience of being with someone who is interested in her as a person, not interested in an outcome. In practice, that looks like conversations that don't have an agenda, physical affection that doesn't carry an expectation, an evening where he's actually there, not half present, while he's managing the calculus of whether tonight might be the night. It looks like being someone whose reactions she can predict, someone she doesn't have to manage or brace against, someone who can hear a hard thing without making her responsible for his emotional state afterward. It looks like repairing small moments before they become patterns, noticing when something landed wrong and coming back to it, not to win, not to defend, but to close a loop. This is the work that needs to happen every day, not only on nights when he's hoping for a connection, every day, in the ordinary moments that either build safety or quietly take it away. When that shifts, something else shifts too. Men stop thinking about initiating as a separate event, a bid that gets accepted or rejected, and start experiencing connection as something that flows naturally when the emotional environment is right. Intimacy stops feeling like a goal to pursue and starts feeling like something that emerges on its own. That is not an accident. That is responsive desire doing what it does when the conditions allow it. If this episode shifted something for you, I want you to sit with a few honest questions before you do anything with it. Where have you been reading "not yet" as a permanent no? Where has your reaction to her no, even a quiet, internal reaction, communicated that there were consequences for declining? Where have you been contributing with an expectation underneath it, hoping the effort would convert into closeness? And where has the emotional channel been saying something different from the words? None of these questions are indictments. They are invitations to see something more clearly. And clarity is where real change starts. If you want to understand how this plays out in your specific marriage, not in theory, but in the actual texture of what's happening between you two, that is what a relationship clarity call is for. It'll take 30 minutes. We will look at your situation honestly. What's happening, what you've been misreading, and what realistically needs to shift for intimacy to come back. Not a to-do list. Actual clarity about where you are and what is possible. You can book that at elisastoddard.com. You've been trying to solve this for a long time. Let's make sure you're solving the right problem. And after this episode, if you haven't already, go listen to episode 57. It will add another layer to everything we covered today. See you next time. Thanks for being here. If something in this episode hit home, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more men find the support they need. And if you are ready to get help or take the next step, you'll find the link to book a free call in the show notes. I'll see you next time.